So, welcome everyone to another episode of the Elevate Podcast, the show where we explore technology, leadership, innovation, and the journeys behind impactful careers. I'm your host, Harsha Pitavala, and today I'm excited to welcome Leah Kronk onto our podcast. Leah has built an impressive career through leadership, collaboration, and driving meaningful impact across teams and organizations. What stands out to me is her ability to combine strategic thinking with a strong people first mindset, something that's incredibly important in today's fast moving world. So, Leah started her career in technical support and data analytics space. Then she moved on to IT project and program management. Then she moved on to management in site reliability engineering. And currently, she's a director in site reliability engineering and observability at Pearson. I had the privilege of working under her few years back when I was a site reliability engineer at Pearson, and there were three important qualities I noted in her. First one, she brought so much energy to every meeting, to every team that she was part of. And then during challenging times in any organization, maybe it was restructuring or some any challenging situation, she not only did her job, but she thrived and she got more responsibilities under her umbrella. Then she has been super transparent in her communication with her team members. So, with that, in this episode, we are going to dive into Leah's career journey, lessons learned along the way, leadership insights, navigating growth and change, and advice for professionals looking to elevate their own careers. Leah, thank you so much for joining the Elevate podcast. It's great to have you here.
Thanks, Harsha. That was a very, very nice, warm welcome. I appreciate it, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, you strongly deserve that, Leah. So let's move on to our content today. So I want to ask you this simple question, but I think it will be very important to our audience to hear from you. You have a long career, you have had a long career, and if you look back, what is one decision or maybe two or three decisions that truly shaped your career or life?
I think a couple things were there's many things, but I think a couple like turning points. I would say the first one is that I when I finished undergrad, my undergraduate degree was in management information systems, which is now more called business analytics and information systems. And my first tech job was as a help desk person for a insurance software. Uh, and I worked in help desk, and what I found, even after a short time, that I really appreciated what technology can do for the business more so than the technology itself, right? So and I realized that once I was working in it day to day. And so I decided to go back to school and go to graduate school and work on my MBA to help support just the business side of technology. And so that was a big one. One that that's, I would say fairly an obvious thing or typical, but one thing that I did that I think really changed things for me, that might not seem like it would, is that I ran a marathon. I had never been a runner. I was like in my 30s, and I decided to try to take on this challenge. And it was, of course, it was physically demanding, but it's much more of a mental thing. And it was nothing I ever would have dreamed I'd been able to do. I was not like an athlete, not in that realm of my world at all. And I think being able to accomplish that just like really reinforced the fact that I don't think there's much that's out of people's scope, is if you give it the consistency and the time and the dedication. And I think going through that process just really helped kind of drive that belief home, and gave me something to attach to as far as like confidence and knowing that um, you can get where you want to go if you just give it the energy and the dedication.
Yeah, that's really interesting, Leah, because I have met a lot of people who shifted their journey by taking some physical challenge, like maybe
Hmm.
going to the gym regularly by running a marathon. So it's really nice to hear. So you were saying you were trying to do something that was out of your comfort zone at that time.
Hmm. Hmm.
So like, was it like because somebody motivated you, or any of your friends did that? What was the motive behind that?
Well, I was trying to just like get healthier in general. And
Mhm,
I was like, I don't even remember where I was, but I heard somebody mention that they were going to train for some run that was like 7 miles or something. And I thought I was sort of like in the mode of trying to become healthier in general. And my kids were really young. I think it was right after I had my second. I have three kids, and it was right after I had my second baby, and I was just trying to be a good role model and trying to make sure I kept my health up with all the demands of school
mhm,
and parenting and career and all that. And so I just heard somebody mention it. I thought, oh, that might be a good thing to like give me a focus and a goal that you could like work towards each week so that I stayed committed to it. And so I just started kind of researching and found like a running plan where you started with like 30-second intervals, and I was like, well, I can do 30 seconds of running, right? And it just
mhm,
gradually increased over time. And then I accomplished that, and somebody that I worked with, we were chatting about it because he did like running events all the time, and he had just the same weekend that I had run my first 10K, he had run like twice that distance. And I was like, how did you do that? Like it took everything. I don't even know how you. And the next week, he laid an article on my desk that was of a person that was like doing a fundraiser, and they had never run in their life, and they trained to do a marathon. And so um, I was like, well, why not? I don't have anything to lose. I might as well try. If it doesn't work, I'll
mhm,
just stop. And I did have young kids at the time, and talked to my husband about it, said, hey, do you mind if I do this or try? And he said,
mhm,
yeah, well, I'll try and do it with you. We would get sitters to do long runs on the weekend. It was kind of just a good thing to focus on, and also got us a way to keep sanity while you're trying to do the parenting thing when your kids are really young. And yeah, that's kind of how it started. And I was, like I said, I was shocked at what you can do when you just stay dedicated and moving small increments at a time.
yeah. And when you talk about that journey, one thing I realized was when you initially started, you had no idea how things would roll out.
Hmm.
You hadn't figured out everything, but you anyway started. You took some action, and that really led you to take the next action likewise. So
Yes.
how do you say, or how do you emphasize the importance of taking some imperfect action without waiting for the perfect timing, perfect experience, or perfect skill level? How do you emphasize the importance of that action?
I mean, I will tell you that over the years, and especially being a leader now, I think that one of the biggest things that get in people's way is that they feel like they need to be an expert before they do things. And I think that it's really hard to get anywhere. I think that's kind of been one of the my strengths was um, not being afraid to step out of my comfort zone and being okay with failing, and knowing that it's, I'll give it a try. And if it doesn't work out, I haven't lost anything. I've learned things, and many times it works out for your benefit. But I do see that hold people back a lot, because, they they don't, because it doesn't feel great to fail or not succeed at something you try. But I think if you can have a mind shift about that you're really just going to give it a shot and see what you can do and see what you're capable of. And if it doesn't work out, that's okay, because you've probably learned a lot along the way too.
Yeah, that's really nice to hear from you, Leah. That sometimes, most of the time, why people don't take attempts, they have the fear, they are worried what others would think. They
Right.
would they are not they are afraid to put a failure mark on their journey, and I think that keeps them from trying even the simplest things. So I really appreciate you sharing how you took that imperfect, uncomfortable action and then build on top of that to take greater challenges. That's really nice for our audience. Thank you very much for
Yeah.
sharing that.
Yeah. Thank you. Hmm.
So now I want to take a pivot and talk about some of your leadership. Uh, so I know you have been working in technology for a while. And when did you decide that you wanted to move into leadership? And what drove that?
I would say that when I started to get into more management like roles, it was more, I did technical project management and technical program management, which was very much the same, except just a much larger scope. But in all those roles, I never had direct reports. So I wasn't like a formal leader. But I did try to take those opportunities to do leadership type work to help the teams. And I think I really came to the realization that, a lot of times I just felt like things could be done better, that there were ways to do things better, and not not at the fault of the leadership that was already in place, but just it's hard to find the time, to do those extra small things. And in a lot of ways, I just would see opportunities where I felt like, I think there's things that we could do better that support people in better ways, draw people's talent out. I saw many, many times people have a lot of talents that weren't being utilized. And I felt like I wanted to get into a position to try to make things better for the teams. And that's kind of where I was coming from. I also felt like, in different scenarios, this is not like directed at individuals. I think some of it is more just like, the business machine would not be able to take advantage of people's skill sets and the type of ownership that they had. And maybe certain things would be micromanaged that shouldn't be, in my opinion. But then in other areas, where there maybe should have been more attention, there wasn't enough. And so a lot of it just had to do with my personal opinions about the way things could be done differently, that I felt would support people that knew how to work and knew how to own the work that they did. I think it can be very specific to the type of people and or like job that you're managing. And I think that there is a lot of variation in the way things need to be managed based on who the people are, or the type of work, or even the type of profession it is. And so I really try to tune into that and meet people where they are with what they personally need to grow. I do also think it's really important to hold people accountable. So I very much believe in being like a more of a coaching, supportive leader. But if somebody's given opportunities and they are given direct information about what needs to be done differently or better, or any of that kind of feedback, I think that it's a leader's role to have that hard conversation and be direct with people. And then if they don't sort of come along and fill that role, then maybe it's not the right role for them. And so I think that I'm the kind of person that is I'm pretty comfortable with having hard conversations. I think it's necessary. No one likes it necessarily, but I think it's the kind thing to do, and what my job is as a leader, because people really don't. Sometimes people just don't know what is really needed, and if their leaders are uncomfortable talking about it, it just does a disservice to the company and to the person and their growth, across the board. So those are the things that kind of drive me as a leader, and put me into the place of wanting to do it to make things better for people.
Right. So from your answer, what I got is that there are two motives like that moved you into leadership. One was you saw a lot of coaching and mentorship opportunities, so you
Hmm.
can bring the best out of your team members or the bigger team. And then you wanted to create better influence with a bigger scope so that things can be done in a better smooth way than you were doing before with the ideas, with the maybe your experience, with your educational background and everything. You could do things better, so you could have a better influence. Those were the like the two motives for you to move into leadership,
Yeah, and
kind of.
and and even going a little further on the influence, one thing that I see, that I think it's important to remember if you want to get in a leadership role. I think a lot of people want to get into leadership because they do want to make things better. I
Mhm.
think that's probably one of the biggest drivers for a lot of people, and um, sometimes it can be hard not to get in the way of yourself, because especially in large companies or in corporate, there's a lot of things that can be really frustrating that you feel like you're
Mhm.
working against for a long time. And if you let that frustration get the better of you, you're not gonna. It's gonna be much harder to get a leadership role. It's really
Mhm.
important to be able to keep your head with your frustrations and find ways to work around it and collaborate well, even when you're frustrated. And I think it's important to keep it in mind, like the bigger picture, because if you can't if you can't ever get into that leadership role, your influence is only going to go so far, right? And so
Mhm.
trying to keep your head on the bigger goal about, you know you want to continually try to challenge the status quo where you don't think something is done right, but you also have to be, realize that leadership probably has more information than you do. There might be goals that they have that might not align to your goals if you were in that seat, but you're not in that seat yet, right? And you've got to.
Mhm.
I think it's important to keep that in mind so that you can get to a place where, if you want to make things better, that you can realize that, and get to a spot where you can have a greater influence like that. And so I think that can be hard. And um, I do think it's important to know, like, when there's things I don't agree with that I have to follow, because my leaders have made that a goal. I will always challenge it and give my opinion and give alternate solutions that align more with what I believe is the right way to go. But I also always know that when the rubber hits the road, I have leaders and they get to make the calls. So I'll
Mhm.
challenge it, be respectful, offer alternate solutions and reasons why. But if my leaders say, I understand what you're saying, but that's not how we're going to do it. I want you to do it this way, or this is what our goal is. Then I understand that, they're the one in the leadership spot. So I need to, you know, work towards that goal too.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for sharing that. So, in addition to those motives, like when you took up a leadership role, you had to also speak up. That is what you are suggesting here. Like, you are not, as a leader, you shouldn't be following whatever your superiors are giving you, but also you have to challenge and see and recommend better ways if you have those ideas, options, and everything. So, along that, I want to ask you another uh, important question. This may be important to anyone who is looking to move on to management roles. So
Hmm.
when you first started leading a team, what surprised you, or what kind of mind shift change required if you remember those early days, what really
Yeah.
surprised you?
I think one of the biggest surprises was how there's a very wide range of what people want and need from their leaders. And I knew there would be big differences because we're all different people, right? But I think that I was surprised about how different, people, even that have similar personalities or similar, like, people that work in the same field, so they might have a lot in common. What they need and want from their manager is very different, and that I think it's really important to really meet people where they are. Like I mentioned before, and so that was something that was surprising to me. I also I don't come across this a lot, but I was also surprised. There's some people that are working in a job that they really don't love very much, like they don't like it, or they don't like the company. And I'm always surprised when I come across people, like at the level of the positions that I manage, because I just I think that's a shame. I don't think I couldn't come to work every day and give it everything that I have if I didn't really like what I was doing. And there's a lot of people that there's not a lot. I think there's a lot of people across the world that probably that have to do that for different reasons. But um, I think it's important to, if you're not happy or you're need to find something different, that it's good to step out of your comfort zone and find a place, because I think it's going to be really hard to grow and get to where you want to if you aren't loving what you're doing, least liking it, and so that kind of surprised me a little bit.
Yeah, yeah. With that, I want to ask you another question. So, what you are basically saying is loving what you do, right? Uh, have there been, because sometimes for whatever reasons in our careers, we might have to work on a different team that we are not super interested in, not
Hmm.
super enthusiastic about. So, in such situations, have you had any experience working in such teams, and any recommendations you have for anyone who is stuck there, or they want to, but they cannot leave the organization for whatever reason, but if they
Hmm.
want to grow that desire to grow that interest, what actions could they take?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's a great example to give, because sometimes you're like, and you might be fine, but you don't love what you're doing, or even maybe you loved it for a long time, but you want a new challenge or you want to grow. I think that some of the best ways are, it's always really good to just give your absolute best. I think if you give 100% to your job during your regular working hours, you're going to do really well. I think a lot of people believe you have to put in tons of extra hours, and, sometimes I think that can really help with going above and beyond. But just giving 100% and really caring about the job that you do is going to open things up for you, because people are going to work with you and they're going to understand how good you are at your job and that you know how to deliver. And so that alone is going to open up opportunities, because then when you start to look for something else, or you talk to people in your network and say, yeah, I'd like to I'd like to start doing something else, people are going to know you're open to that, and they'll think of you when there's, different positions that open up. And honestly, that's how I landed in the role I'm in now, from a previous colleague that thought I would be a good person to fill a position. And that's what happened on my previous two roles, actually. And so that network that you build over time can be a great, really good resource for getting into new opportunities. And I do think it's important to talk to people outside of your group too. Of course, it has to be somebody that you can trust. And if you have a manager that you trust, I don't think everybody's always in the situation where they can go to their manager and say, hey, I like a new challenge. You can ask them for even work or specific project things that they could do within their own team that will get them new exposure and new experiences, or even within, like, I've had, people have come to me and said, I'd kind of like to go into different areas at Pearson, and I would always help somebody do that, because I think it's really important to be in a spot that you want to be. um, I think you have to trust your manager and know that that's going to go okay, because I don't know if that works out in every situation. But the other thing that you can do is get involved in different, like, community groups within your company, because that even will help get exposure to just what other teams do. I think we can get really focused on the work that we do, and there's so much, especially if you're at a big company, there's so many other opportunities out there. You don't even know what they do for the company. And so if you get involved, like, I'm involved in a women in tech community. I meet a lot of people that do different jobs in that community. I also signed up to help with, a couple of years ago, after, like, engagement survey results for my company. They put together a recognition task force. That's something that I think is important, and so I wanted to be involved in it. And I feel like it was really important, especially for our neck of the woods, where, our work isn't as public as a lot of other groups. And so I wanted to get involved in that. And um, that's been really rewarding. And it's also allowed me to meet people that I would never cross paths with during my regular workday. So I think those are all, great opportunities to get exposure to networking, people, other jobs that are out there, new challenges, all those types of things that can lead you to your next adventure.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Leah. And I wanted to uh, ask you one more question about how you look at mentorship. As you mentioned, you communicate with your manager clearly. That's a very great thing, because that manager can really help you find something that matches your skills better, find you other opportunities in the same organization, and do something that you prefer to do. So I think it's really important that you clearly communicate with your manager and seek his mentorship all the time, right? That's what you're
Yeah.
suggesting.
Yes, and just don't be afraid to ask. I mean, people can say no, or they can maybe not say no directly, but you definitely get the message that they don't want to take it on. But don't let that discourage you. I mean, and luckily I've had a lot of great leaders and people that I've gone to that have been willing to help. And a lot of it is just patience. Like, you put the idea out there, and timing is, like, so much of it. I think people can get really discouraged, because they're working towards something all the time. And I've been in a situation where I thought I was going to get a position. I was, kind of at the top of the pile for a position, and it didn't end up coming to me. And it was frustrating and discouraging. And so I totally get that. But sometimes there's things outside of just you and your talents that influence decisions. And so you just should keep trying for what you want, because sometimes it has a lot more to do with timing and luck, than I mean, you have to have the talent there, but sometimes you just have to be patient because the timing has to line up right. And that's something I've learned over the years. The other thing I would say is, one thing I did early on, when I was still in grad school at the time, but I was getting ready to graduate, and I at the time realized that my next step, I wanted it to be like technical project management. That's kind of how I wanted to go into leadership. And the company I was working at, they had a structure where my technical project manager was also my direct manager. That's the structure they had. And so I was getting ready to get done with grad school. And I said to her, I specifically asked her, would you mentor me? This is where I want to go. This is what you do. Would you be willing to take some time to mentor me? And she offered way more than I expected. She basically let me job shadow with her once a week for like 2 or 3 months. And then, and all I had to do was ask. Right. And so then I got to see kind of what she really did day to day. It helped me know that I actually wanted to do that, gave me some exposure that when I was trying to get a job like that, it was much easier for me to talk to it because I had, been involved with it. And then that led to me being able to do an interim project um, that gave me a project of my own that I could deliver. It had an end date. I didn't get paid any extra. I didn't get a lot of kudos for it when it was done, which can be frustrating, but it really helped launch, into that work. I ended up, there ended up being a job open like 3 months after that project with a manager that I was exposed to during that work. And I ended up getting that job, which was like 2 levels up from where I currently was. And had I not asked for the mentoring and been given this work without pay and without a lot of credit, but it led to that next stop. So I think that's something to keep in mind too, that sometimes you got to do a lot of things that's investing in your future, but you might not see um, the rewards from that for a while.
Nice, nice. Yeah. So it's like the end goal is yet unclear, uncertain, but still you have to
Yes.
keep on trying and seek help. That is the other thing. You have to be ready to ask for help from other people
Hmm.
and see, because most of the time we are worried they would say no, they would not accept our offer, but we should try.
Right.
Nothing bad, nothing worse could happen. Yeah.
Yeah, and there might be people that would be totally willing to do it, but it's also just not a great time for them. They have too much on their plate, and they would just tell you that, like, this really isn't a good time for me. But they'll they'll just know that you have more interest and being proactive about being willing to do more things. Um, you know, just for the experience itself is a really good signal too to your leaders that you're interested in new challenges and going further too.
Sure. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that very great insights,
Hmm.
Leah. I want to ask one question, another that I think would help our audience. What is one thing you wish someone had told you when you were starting out your career?
That patience and the timing thing, like a lot of times it's just it requires patience because there's only so many leadership roles, right? And there's a lot of
Mhm.
people that want them. And so a lot of times it's not you, like, keep doing what you're doing because you have to be prepared and have yourself proven for when that timing happens just right. You can't wait until the timing's available and then try to start like showing what you can do. You've got to have shown that all ahead of time and then have a little kind of faith and be patient about it. The other thing I think that um, is really important to know, and I actually heard this like from a speaker in one of my classes during grad school, and it really clicked with me, and that was I always really wanted direct feedback. And a lot of people, it's really uncomfortable for them to be very direct about it. And I just wanted somebody to tell me, like, tell me what I'm not doing well that I could do better. And what she said was, even if you're not getting like verbal direct feedback, you're always getting feedback. You need to listen to the nonverbal feedback that you're getting, right? So, which I really, that really helped me because I'm a very direct person. And so I had a hard time understanding unless somebody told me directly. And so I kind of switched my mind about that and started thinking about the indirect feedback that I was getting. Like, if I'm asking for something and someone isn't giving it to me, they either don't like the way that I'm asking for it, or they don't like my communication style, or it's just not an opportunity that they think I'm ready for, or they're going to give me. Right. And so I started trying to listen more closely to that feedback that wasn't direct. And that was something I think a lot of people are naturally probably better at that than I was. But I think it was more because of my personality and how I communicate. So I really had to think about um, how other people communicate and like listening to it from their perspective. And so just trying to tune in, and it all goes back again to like meeting people where they are, right? So not even the people that I work with and support, but the people that support me. I needed to learn like how to communicate better with them, what they're saying, even though it might not be in the same way that I would say it, and try to gain feedback from that.
Thank you. Thank you about sharing. Thank you for sharing about that importance of getting direct feedback. And that's something I think a lot of the leaders are not doing rightly. They are sometimes afraid, they want to give indirect feedback, but yeah,
Mm.
that's really important. So the team member or other person can really improve. They can find their on focus on their weaknesses, and then try to grow, learn, and gather experience. That's really nice.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
one last question I want to ask you, Leah, is that as I mentioned, I saw you are communicating uh, well in a team, like especially when you want to communicate the organizational interests and
Hmm.
communicating it to your team members. So I want to ask you this: how challenging it is to be transparent as a leader when you have to balance between the organizational interests and growth and opportunities for your team members.
Yeah, that's probably one of the hardest things to balance, because I'm a very direct person, and I also think that I, I think that a lot of people are worried about going there as much because they're harder conversations, and I don't think people are coming from it like from a bad spot, but a lot of times they don't want to worry people, or they don't want to hurt people's feelings, and they know people are working hard, right? So they're coming from that, from a good spot, I think. But like I said, I think that having those hard conversations are better for everybody in the long run, and it's the more kind thing to do, even though things might sting, or not feel as great. I think it's better to let people know, but like you said, there's a balance, because a lot, when you're in a leadership role, you end up dealing with a lot of confidential information, whether it's because of your direct interactions with other reports, or things that the goals that the company has that can't necessarily be out there yet. Usually it's coming later, and you have to prepare for things, but there's different reasons why things need to stay confidential. Um, and I pretty much take the position that I like to make sure to tell people anything that is okay to tell them, that's going to help. I look at it from, what would I want if I was in their shoes, or what do I want from my leaders, right? Knowing that I can handle the information and do the best with it. So, but it is a hard balance, because sometimes there could be things that might make people not feel great about their job, or those types of things, and you don't want to say things that are unlikely to happen, right? Like that just creates unnecessary concern. And so there's a balance there too, because you don't want to like create a situation where there's uncertainty, or things don't feel great, and it's not even something that's necessarily going to happen. But if there's things that, for example, perfect example, when compensation review periods come around, when you're looking at um, salary and merit salary increases and bonus levels, right? Those can be harder conversations to have, and I don't think that's something that should be not discussed, because our goal as leaders is to reward people for performance with their bonus amounts, or their merit raises. And there's a lot of different things that can go into those types of decisions. Um, and some of them have to do with performance, but some of them aren't. one topic is if you have merit increases each year and you're given a certain budget that goes around to all your people, and you might have somebody that does awesome work all the time, exceeds expectations, but they might already be at the higher end of the salary range, right? And you might
Mhm.
have somebody that does equally as great work and they're on the lower end of the salary range. Well,
Mhm.
you want to try to get people to that midpoint, right? And so and you only have so much budget, and so all those things have to go into consideration with the fact of somebody's performance. And so there's a lot of different things, and sometimes those can be hard conversations because I think it can be frustrating to hear as an individual. But those, because companies have budgets, there's only so much money. And so we have to figure out ways that make sense. And you have to take a lot of different things into consideration. And I think it's better just to talk people through everything that goes into those considerations. I also try to do, as much as possible to make sure that there's not, that things are as objective as possible. So like and so I will set up how I make decisions on those before I even know what necessarily the budget will be. I will try to define what those things are, what those objectives are, and all the caveats that can go into that. So that when I go to make those decisions, I know exactly why I'm making those decisions. So that if somebody comes to me and says, hey, why did I get this? I feel like it should have been that. I want to be able to tell them exactly why I did it.
Mhm.
And so for the areas where it can be harder conversations, I try to I want to give that information because my job as a leader is to help improve performance. And if I don't ever have substantiated objective information about those types of things that determine it, I'm not helping people, right? And so
Mhm.
those kinds of things that help people develop, I think, are extremely important to be transparent about. Because if we're not, what's the point of doing it? The whole point is to improve people's performance. Now, of course, there's all kinds of confidential information. I certainly don't know all of it, but there's things above me that I don't get to know, and there's things at my level that I need to know going forward that I maybe can't share yet. And so those lines are usually pretty clear. But the ones that are just hard conversations to have, but everybody has a right to know. Um, um, those are the ones that I choose to be transparent about, but I make sure I know why I'm making the decisions I am, so that I can explain that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing those valuable information about being transparent as a leader. That's really, I think, would be really helpful for our audience, Leah. And when you talk about it, I want to ask you one last question. Like,
Hmm.
you are not just a technical leader, you are a loving wife and a mom of three great kids. And with the Mother's Day just around the corner,
Yeah.
I want to ask you, how do you bring so much energy to the team with all those family commitments, personal commitments, everything? Do you have any particular morning routine that you follow that brings you that energy?
Well, I don't know. I will tell you, I am a natural morning person. I've always woken up really early. I think that I've always had kind of a lot of energy. I think when I was young, I didn't have a lot of direction to it, and so it wasn't always used in the best ways. But once I, got a little bit more mature and went back to, because I was a non-traditional student, I went later. And the thing is, I just I don't know if there's a, a magic equation for it. I've always been up early. I love what I do. If I don't love what I'm doing, I will change my job, because I think
Uh-huh.
if I walk into work and I don't feel energetic, um, it's probably because I'm not real happy with it, honestly. And
Mhm.
so I'll make a change. I definitely have times where the energy is not there and I get very tired. I think
Mhm.
back to, my kids are all adults now.
Uh-huh.
And I think back to when I was like in my 30s and 40s when they were growing up, and I often wonder how I had the energy because it was like getting all my exercise in and the work and three kids going different directions. I also have a great partner. We with as far as parenting and stuff. We've always been equally, well, not always equal, but when we each kind of had our areas that we did our stuff in for the kids and the house. And I think that it I think if you have somebody that doesn't support it, I think that would make it much harder, for sure. And but when it comes down to it, I feel very fortunate in life. As you mentioned, I've got a great partner. I have great kids, and I feel. I know it can sound sort of like cliche or whatever, but I am very grateful for all of that, and I get to have a job I really love, and I work with people that I really enjoy working with day to day, and it just makes everything easier and gives me a lot of energy. But I will say too that when I definitely get to points where I fizzle out on my energy or things get really hard and it wears on you, and I definitely take the time to step away. I take vacation. If I'm having a bad day or I have a bad attitude, if I can get away with it, like if my schedule will allow, I'll take a personal day, and because I need to like mentally reset, because I don't like sitting at work when I feel crabby, you know.
Yeah, right.
And so I take the time away. And that being said, like if things have to get done, they have to get done, and I'll make sure that I'm there for that. But I will, if I need a break, I'll take it the first chance I get when things calm down. And I think it's really important to. A lot of people work really hard and have a great attitude and don't take the time they need when they can do it. I think it's really important. Like work hard and be there for people when they need you and when the company needs you, and go the extra mile. But when you get worn out, it's important to take time for yourself and step back and reframe, get away from your desk, do stuff that just makes you like relax and be happy, and also like let people do their jobs. Like you don't always need to be in there, like stepping away no matter what level you're at allows your team members to do the job, right? And I think I see a lot of people that just get fried over the years, like always being the one. But it's also important to step away to give other people a chance to be that one, and to know that they might not do it as fast or they might not do it the way you would have done it, but that's how they're going to learn and get better, and it opens up opportunities for them too.
Yeah, thank you, Leah, for sharing. So what I got from that answer is that you are being grateful. That is one thing you are practicing gratitude that
Hmm.
brings you energy back, and also you are taking good care of you, your health, your peace, everything. So I
Hmm.
think those things really contribute to bring your energy back to you. So yeah,
Yep.
thank you for sharing all of that. And with that, I want to conclude this episode of the Elevate podcast. Thank you very much, Leah, joining today for our session and sharing your wisdom and sharing it with our audience. And we wish you all the best for your future work, future plans, and see you guys, see you all of you, and thank you for joining for today's episode, everyone. And we'll see you in another episode. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Harsha.
Thank you. Bye.